Well, here we go. So, this live stream started with an acknowledgement, I believe, from somebody who said, you're really good at flirting. You should teach a class on flirting. And I thought, I don't flirt. I don't even know. It actually took me a good, most of the day to be able to even respond to her. And I said, it's a great idea. It's good for marketing, but I don't know how to teach any flirting strategies. All I know how to do is to be myself, to express things in the moment, to not have any sort of secondary thoughts about whether or not what I'm saying is okay, and to come from authenticity, like I'm just expressing what's there. And she said, exactly. And then I got to think more and more about this, and really, I've had this really does fit into the evolutionary gentleman material and in the personal evolution material in general. And because I've been on my path for the last 30 years, exploring self-esteem and self-acceptance and ego development and dissolution of shame, all those things, I realized that it's actually perfect. And so it wasn't always that way though for me. I wasn't always just able to communicate. So I want to take you all the way back until, you know, gosh, let's say 30 years ago. I was terrified of most humans, and women. Oh my gosh, they weren't even humans. They were ethereal beings. So they were even more difficult to talk to. In fact, I don't think I asked a woman out until I was 28 years old. I was very blessed they asked me out. I was just mostly terrified. Um, but what happened? So it's not just about flirting or about romance, but when I did my NLP training when I was 25 years old, one of the things I realized is we have opportunities every time we interact with people, whether it's somebody at the checkout stand or whether it's an Uber driver or whether it's, well, there were no Uber drivers then, but maybe it's a cab driver. Ask them how they're doing. We like improve their state in some way. So when I did my NLP training, I being a change agent was the phrase at the time. Like let's improve people's states. Let's just make the world a better place. Like, and so sometimes I would be at a grocery store, I would grab the person's name, name off their name tag, address them by their first name, ask them how they're doing. And at the end, I go, "Hey, will you do me one more favor?" And they go, "Sure." Have the best day you've had in a long time, and that would be it. And I would say goodbye. And they got they got treated like an actual human rather than an extension of the checkout. You know, whatever the scanner, like boop boop boop, and they're sort of in this trance. People aren't really interacting with them. So I took it upon myself to just see if I could improve people's state, their emotional state, like have them feel a little bit better after I walked by them and engaged with them. Whether it was and retail is so easy because there's nothing at stake really. Like you can, or somebody you're in line with, you can joke with them or say something you like about them, or acknowledge something you appreciate about them. It was many, many years later when I had to burn through, my nervousness, my social anxiety. Most people don't realize this either, but I'm a massive introvert. I just don't have any social anxiety anymore. So I still need, days of downtime sometimes. In fact, the next 2 weeks, I'm actually taking 8 days of downtime total to make sure that I can restore myself and not be so edgy with my students and clients, and be a little bit be a little bit less of a cunt sometimes online. I just need to take some time away, be near the ocean, next to a fireplace, and be with myself. Vipassana meditation is certainly one of those things that I would normally do, but in the pandemic we can't, just go and be in a room where people are focusing on their breath for 8 hours a day with 130 people in the room. So the path there, though, like I had to dissolve shame. I had to get over my discomfort about what they might think. And so the path from being, you're going to love this. My girlfriend from high school, we talked a few years after I got out of high school, and she said, "You know what the rumor was about you, right?" And I said, "No." She said, "The rumor was your father was in the CIA, so you weren't allowed to talk to anybody." That was the rumor about me, because I was terrified to talk to people. By the way, my father was not in the CIA. Just and if he was, I wouldn't be able to share that with you. You'd have to sign a. Anyway, no. Couldn't have been further from the truth. It was hilarious to me. But that was the story they made up about me, because I was the kid that always sat in the back row, never talked to anybody like that. So once I realized that in terms of flirting, like the best thing to do with, like, I can't stand the pickup community. I think I find most of it repulsive. And it's unfortunate that that was the first exposure that a lot of people had to NLP and anchoring, and it's a misuse of the technology, and you really don't have to do any tips. You don't have to do like any tricks, or in fact, the best thing to do is just acknowledge people. So I started to, as a practice, actually, this is fun. So because I was so scared to approach women, my friend Mark, if I was like, oh my gosh, she's gorgeous, he'd be like, you got to go talk to her. And I was like, no, I don't. No. And so we agreed that I would have to pay him. This is 1996. I'd have to pay him $20, which, I don't know what that is in today's dollars, but it's like handing over a 50 if I didn't go up and talk to her. So mostly I was just like, I didn't say anything to him. But sometimes I'd become, and he'd go, gotta go talk to her. And I realized what happened is I realized I wasn't going to die. Like, first of all, you have to burn through the fight or flight thing that goes on. Like, oh my gosh, I didn't die, because there's this irrational fight or flight that occurs. But additionally, I realized if I wasn't like, a lot of things that guys, like the biggest mistake that guys make is trying to get somewhere. So I realized, I'm not actually trying to get a phone number or trying to get laid or I just want to express my appreciation for her. I just want to authentically go, gosh, I love the way you, like the way your hips move underneath that fabric, or I love the way you walk in those heels. Like, it seems like you're walking very powerfully. It seems like you're really in your body. So I started to realize that, you combine that with, hey, let me just improve your mood at the checkout counter in a retail situation. Like, what's the best thing that's happened to you today is something I would ask somebody who's checking out my groceries at a grocery store. Take that same, like, I just want to improve their state. I just want to acknowledge something. I'm not trying to get anywhere. I'm just trying to make the world a better place. You map that across to just acknowledging what inspires you about that person. So you walk up and say, I just love the way, and I'll never forget this. I dated a girl for 3 years one time because I complimented her on her quadriceps or triceps. Not quadriceps, that's thighs. On her triceps. It's like, oh, you have amazing. She's like, thanks. I've been working on that. Right? She was, buck 05, 5'1", but she had been working on her triceps, and she had this beautiful little noticeable, not, but still very feminine curve to it. And I just acknowledged that. And we ended up dating for 3 years after that. But that was I just said what I noticed. So what I've noticed is a lot of people have this gap in between something they notice and something they need to say. And we do it. Usually we have attention on things we're supposed to say that we don't want to say because it's negative. But I find that mostly like, hey, dude, nice suit. Or, gosh, amazing shoes. Or, I love the way you're like, you seem like an incredible, like, you seems like you really know what you're doing when you're bagging groceries. Like, you just talk to the person, notice them, and acknowledge them for something. So when it comes to, flirting, because again, I don't consider that flirting, but it can be flirtatious. And obviously, if I find a woman attractive, I'm going to express that. But I'm not just going to say, I think you're really attractive. I'm going to say something about that, usually, not always, but usually. Unless I'm so overwhelmed, I'll be like, oh my God, and I get all dorky because, I am pretty much a dork. I just don't have any social anxiety anymore. But if you just walk up to them, and here's what I noticed. I used to have an office in downtown San Francisco, right by the Montgomery Street BART station. High traffic area, lots of different, like there's, people from the mission, people from finance, people from, they're just coming from the East Bay, all those things. And so I started to sit out there at lunch, and sometimes I would just do it to breathe in the feminine walking by. Just, oh, there she is in a business suit, or there she is in a summer dress, or there she is, hippie and tacked back, like all those things. And I started to realize that if I just walked up to them and said what was on my mind without getting in my head about whether or not to do it, some people call that flirting, but also, and here's the practitioner in me. And if I walked up to her and said, I hope somebody's telling you every day how beautiful you are, or I really love how embodied you look in those heels, like the way you're holding yourself in those. And by the way, I don't like spike heels. Who likes spike heels? I like block heels because there's lots of things there. But if you just walk up and you just acknowledge them for something, I love the way you're holding yourself. You look really self-assured, or it could be any number of things. In that moment, you get to see a whole bunch of things. You get to see how comfortable they are in themselves. You get to see how well they receive acknowledgments. You can tell in that flash whether or not they're scared about the world or not, because I'm a stranger. I mean, it's high noon, but I'm a stranger. But, they could tell I'm well-intended. I'm not trying to get anywhere. And sometimes I would just say the thing and then walk by. They go, oh, I got a boyfriend. I'm like, I don't care. I'm just saying that you seem really powerful in the way that you walk. I'm not trying to. And then occasionally I noticed I would continue to walk past, and they go, whoa, where are you going? Right. So it's a super, like, you just get to make the world a better place. You get to, and some people consider it flirting, but there's a few things that are really, really important. It has to be authentic. Like, don't try to be getting someplace. Don't try to have some attachment to some outcome. And it has to be just there's something that arises in you that's an authentic expression that you want to communicate. And the second, don't stop yourself like the inner chatter. Just do it. The fight or flight thing, I'll never forget. There's a guy I saw. I was consulting for some presenters, and they were leading a course on how to be more authentic with women. This is 12 years ago, I think. And there's this guy there was no women in the room. There's like 30 guys in the room, and they were there and they were going to, work on their purpose, work on how to, and there was some women that were going to come in the next day and give them feedback on how they were occurring. And there was this guy in there who told me he had spent $30,000 on workshops on how to pick up on women. And he looked as nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs, as my grandmother used to say. This guy was terrified still. And I was like, you don't need another course. I didn't say this because it wasn't my workshop. He wasn't my participant. I was like, you don't need another course. You need to, in my head, I was like, you need to go approach 300 women this weekend and ask for the numbers until you realize you're not going to die, because he had this fight or flight thing going on. But thank you, Jen. There's a difference between an acknowledgement and a compliment, but we'll get there. But if you just acknowledge something deeper about them, something that most people wouldn't notice, sometimes a subtlety, it shows that you're actually noticing them, acknowledging them, but you also get to witness their reaction to it, which tells you so much about the human. Now, can that be flirtatious? Totally. Is it my intention to flirt? Not really. But is it flirtatious? Probably, almost always. But isn't there, I think we've missed out in the last couple of decades on just the inspiration and the fun of just being experiencing chemistry and fun, and you don't have to get anywhere. It could be just a yummy 30-second exchange, and that's fun. Now it might go somewhere else, but so this whole, I thought it was hilarious that she thought she thought that I should teach a class on flirting. So I'm like, I don't even know how to do that. And again, as the copy suggested, I said what I thought, which was like, well, all I do is express what's authentic for me. I just don't get in my head about whether or not I should say that or not. And let's take flirting and masculine and feminine dynamics and gender stuff and dating and like desire and sex. And let's take all that and put that aside for a second. Wouldn't the world be a way better place if we just said the positive things we think about people when we walk by them? I love how clean you keep your car. Oh my gosh, like the way, like, great suit, dude. Or like, man, you are really, like, you seem really present. You seem really dialed in. Or the other example, I was at Trader Joe's and I acknowledged the guy for the way he like packaged my groceries because I was like, man, the way you packed it, that was impressive that you fit all that in the way that you did it. It doesn't cost me anything, and I was thinking it anyway, and I think that's really the essence of it. Like, get out of your head, just be present, and just say the positive thing. In a lot of communication courses or in a lot of communities, they talk about withholds. And usually it's like, I was scared to say this thing because I thought I might hurt your feelings. And that's fine. A lot of people do that. I get that. Not my friendships. We have agreements around truth over comfort. But I think the real tragedy in the world and the thing that stops people from having more fun, feeling more frisky, and sure, flirty, is that they don't say the positive things. You know? I I will always whenever I got a suit on, invariably some black dude's like, "That's a great fucking suit," and I'm like, I always take a compliment from a black man about my suit. Thank you. And it's fun. We both laugh about it. Like, there's no internal chatter about whether or not it's appropriate or not, or oh my, is somebody going to be offended, or we're just in the moment. We're present, and we don't get in our heads about it. Difference between acknowledgments and compliments, I think, is really important. Um, a compliment will always be surface level. Um, you know, nice shoes, pretty dress, right? Different than like, wow, I love the way you walk in those shoes, or hey, look at it. That's the fabric of that dress really complements your hips. Like, those are like, it's a different level of noticing. And if you know the person, acknowledging them to such a degree that you almost get teary eyed and they really receive it, like it actually arises from an authentic, deep appreciation for them. So, compliments, I think compliments are something anybody could say at any time. But if you can actually acknowledge somebody deeply and you demonstrate your appreciation for them, you're noticing for the richness and the depth that they have, and you can meet at those depths. Now, you don't have to know them. You can do that on the street as long as you actually take somebody in at a deeper level. You have a greater capacity for witnessing. Hmm. So, questions. Everybody have any questions? I've said a bunch of stuff. I think I'm going to try to keep these to 30 minutes from now on. Any questions, comments, observations, reactions? Kate, what is this? A guy chase you. Does he work in the Walmart? I don't know how this happens. Did you give me your phone? How does he? What's this guy chased you for 3 years because you floated by him and said, "Whoa, nice beard"? I mean, you don't have to answer. It seems a little weird, though. All right. Any other questions? Oh, okay. So you worked at Walmart. Is that accurate? Okay. Well, that makes sense. Yeah, he came back in to see you. All right. Anyway, any other questions, comments, observations, or reactions? Snide remarks. Um, would you so let me uh do women really have to flirt? I think women can flirt non-verbally, to be honest. I mean, women can flirt with a glance, with a blush, with a flip of your hair, a bite of your lower lip, by shifting your walk. A man who notices will notice that you're flirting with him. Looking back at him, a couple times, flipping like it's pretty easy for women to flirt with, and I think a lot of guys and a lot. Well, I don't think a lot of women appreciate. So a lot of men don't have enough subtlety of awareness to realize when a woman's flirting with them, and I've certainly been guilty of that. Or like, because I'm sort of attracted to nerds and dorks. She'll be like, "I was flirting." I was like, "Okay, great." Like, you don't know how to flirt. I don't know how to notice. But the some of the universal signs of attraction, and I wish more guys knew this, is like the biting of the lower lip, which sometimes is involuntary, the flip of the hair, the flushing of your face, but just don't be afraid to have eye contact with them. Like, and everybody's scared. It's a funny thing, but I don't. But I mean, you could acknowledge them, but I don't think you need to work that hard. Men have to take most of the risk in most of the. But I love it when a woman walks up to me and she, says the thing, and or it's been a while since because I used to be terrified in my mid to late 20s. I had women approach me, and it was great. I loved it. It because I wasn't sure how to pick up on any cues because I was such a massive introvert. I was like, I don't. And one of the reasons I still ask women permission for the first kiss, always like, may I kiss? And part of it is because I just for decades I wasn't sure if they were attracted to me or not. I was just sort of stupid around it. I had a blind spot, which probably kept me tolerable in my 20s. But also, I've never gone wrong with asking permission for the first kiss. I don't know if that answers your question, Joy, or not, but any other questions, comments, observations, reactions before we wrap this up? Yeah. Excellent, Janet. Thank you. Life becomes an ongoing display of your deep appreciation of just plain being alive and seeing all the past and of each other and every person you really see. Yeah. I mean, we never have to ever talk to them again, see them again. I've never understood that, like the beauty of just acknowledging somebody as you're walking by. You get to find out so much about them, but also you've just made the world a better place. And you feel better also. Like, oh, that was awesome. Like, I told that dude that I loved his car. Me, like, oh man, oh, I love that kind of like, keep it clean, or a great suit, or there was a few months ago I saw a guy on the subway, and he had a dial, like it wasn't a suit I would wear, but he had like a very unique bespoke suit. And he actually had a leather tie. Now I'm not a big fan of leather ties, but it was like it worked with his whole outfit. And he had, like he had a vest. It was a 3-piece suit. Amazing shoes. I was like, dude, amazing, amazing suit. And that was it. We had a brief exchange, passing each other in a cafe or something. I guess it was 6 or 9 months ago now, but somewhere in the middle of the pandemic, there were no masks, so it was probably a year ago. But yeah, we can just relish in being alive and appreciating each other. So don't withhold like the biggest advice in terms of flirtation, and you never know what could come of it. You never know what might come of it. I had 2 years ago, I think, I had a dating app date go wrong. I was in Dallas, Texas, and I was downtown. I was supposed to meet this woman at a restaurant, and she said yes. I said, I sent her she said, well, I'd like to meet her. I said, great. Is this the restaurant? She said, yes. Well, they had 2 locations, but they were about the same distance away from me. So it was like a triangle. So I ended up being 40 minutes away from the location she was in, even though I had sent her a screenshot. And I was like, all right, well, whatever. They have a great menu. It was a, lovely, like tapas bar, and I sat down, and the guy next to me happened to be somebody, just happened to be somebody who was working with a guy who helped people clear PTSD from sexual trauma. And I sat down next to him, and he looked at me and he goes, "Tell me about your childhood." And I went, "What?" And he goes, "You're microslicing." I'm like, "What do you mean? What's microslicing?" He said, "I've watched you like analyze people in a snapshot, and I've seen that a lot. And usually that happens with soldiers or people who've had traumatic childhoods." So I was like, "All right." So I told him my whole, like, I didn't have any reserve. I just told him. And, the next morning I ended up with him and his buddy who was he was a Australian special ops guy who'd been trafficked by his parents when he was 5 years old. So the next morning, the three of us are eating breakfast and talking about how I could help him help people clear out trauma. Only because I wasn't afraid to I was like, what? And I just started talking about my childhood. But he saw something. Like, he was like, "I'm just going to talk to this," and he was right next to me. I didn't, I didn't notice the guy at all. But he's like, tell me about your childhood trauma." I was like, "What? Okay. I mean, what?" And he's like, "You're microslicing. I see it. It only happens in these situations." I was like, "All right, here we go." Way better than whatever data might have had. Microslicing, yeah, it's called microslicing. It's the ability to microslicing is the ability to walk in. It comes from people who have had massively traumatic childhoods, or they've been in war zones. They have to immediately assess what's happening, and so you get to. And I also have the benefit of being a master practitioner in NLP, which gave for me what I noticed structure. So reading people in a snap, like in 20 seconds, whereas it takes most people months or days or years, unless it's a woman I'm in love with, and then apparently I have the worst perception according to one of my good friends. But yeah, microslicing, you can look it up. Instant assessments. It's actually one of my first consulting gigs when I was 25. I was after there was a lawyer who hired me to be his in-house consultant. But one of the things he did was he would have, I told him a few things about some people. He's like, "How could you know that?" So he started testing me, and we would pretend I was the coffee guy, like I would bring in coffee to the conference room. I'd sit down for 5 minutes. I would watch them talk, and then I would go out. When the meeting was over, he'd go, "So what'd you think of them?" And I would give him my assessment. He goes, "How could you know that?" And he'd test me with people he really knew well first. And so I ended up being his consultant for, assessing the nonverbals and what was going on with people that they may or may not be saying. So yeah, microslicing. Anyway, so just get out of your head. Just say the thing. Make the world a better place. Who knows? You might find the love of your life. That's all there is to it. All right. Any other questions, comments, observations before I let you go? Be sweet to yourselves. Be sweet to each other. Evolutionarycompanies.com and evolutionarygentleman.com. All right. Enjoy the rest of your week. Always be in evolution.